Welcome back to the Conversations on Coaching Culture podcast. Conversation on Culture podcast. Thankful that you're able to join us tonight. We got a really special guest, Coach Doucette from, let me get it correct, Orange Coast College. She's the women's head basketball coach, and she's one of the youngest coaches in the California Community College League. So without further ado, I'm going to let her in and we're going to get started. Hey, Coach, how you doing tonight?
Good. How are you?
Good.
I had my virtual settings on.
It's all good. I like it. I like the background. Which one are you switching to?
I'll just switch to the regular.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on tonight. Why don't you just, I tried to do a little intro for you, but why don't you, I can't do it the justice that you could. So why don't you tell people who may listen to this a little about yourself, a little background. Go ahead and tell us about your program as well then.
Sure. Okay. So I started coaching when I was in 8th grade. That's really when it all started for me, just coaching, at the Irvine Boys and Girls Club. And I had decided at that point that this is what I'm going to do when I can no longer play basketball, whether I go to the WNBA or I go play overseas or whatever that means for me. When it's over, I'm going to coach. So I played on a really good high school team. I played for Woodbridge High School in Irvine. We won a CIF championship my sophomore year. We were runner-up my junior year. We lost to Mater Dei. So we lost to a very good team in the championship. And then we lost in the quarterfinal rounds my senior year. Very, very good high school team, very good high school coach. I went to Vanguard University. I was there for 4 years. And the entire time I was there, our overall record was 98-20. We were top 5 in the nation every year that I was there. Conference championship, conference tournament championship. We went to the national tournament, Elite 8. We went to the Sweet 16 2 times. After my career at Vanguard, I went to Concordia University in Irvine as a graduate assistant. I was there for 1 year. And the year before us, I think their record was, they had 2 wins. And then our staff and our team that year, we ended up turning it around a little bit, not entirely, but we had an 11-18 record. I left Concordia because they hired a new head coach. So you know how that goes. A new staff comes in. And I went over to Hope International University, who actually, they are in the same conference as Vanguard. So I was there for 1 year, and same thing. The year before us, the staff and the team had a record, I think, of like 5-22. And our staff and our team, we turned it around to 19-13. And then while I was at Hope, I also was brought on to coach the Mamba Club. And again, I was only at Hope for 1 year. And the big reason was because I just decided I did not want to be an assistant. It wasn't for me. I had a lot of responsibility at Hope and Concordia. And I decided to try to be a head coach at the high school level. And that's what I did. I went to Costa Mesa High School, and long story short there, really, we had 6 players coming in. So there was no frosh soph, no JV. And then by the time our season started, we had 26 players. So we could have had 3 levels, but we kept it to 2. We ended up winning league. I was coach of the year for the Daily Pilot Dream Team. And then I got hired at OCC. I left Costa Mesa High School because OCC was always my goal. I actually applied to be the OCC coach at the same time that I applied to be the Costa Mesa High School coach. Went pretty far in the interview process, didn't get it. And then a year later, I applied again and I got it. And so I've been at OCC since the last June 24th, to be specific. And, California community colleges are pretty limited in their recruiting. At least they were until July 1st of this year. Every school in my conference is within a 20-mile radius, and Golden West actually had started a women's basketball program in March, so a few months before I was hired. So that coach just scooped up anybody that was left that hadn't already committed. So my
Yeah.
season, my first year at OCC, we had really four healthy players for the majority of our year. So we didn't have, on paper, the best year. We canceled a lot of games. We actually only won 2. But I will say, especially going towards everything that we're really going to talk about today, our culture was just phenomenal. I mean, it really was. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. Probably more than you bargained for, but.
No, it's good. It's good because I think, the fact that you're a young women's head coach is going to speak to a lot of different people that may want to listen to this podcast. And I think, obviously, if you're following on Twitter or wherever you share this, they're going to want to hear you tell that story. People want to know about you. So I appreciate you kind of getting in depth with us about some of that. And then, let's just jump in and keep rolling with it. Just keep talking about, I promise I'll be more interactive. I just wanted to let you get that portion of your conversation out of the way. I know there's going to be people who cling to that. And because you're in that specific area of California, or because you coached a Mamba club, or because you're a female, they're going to cling to this podcast because of that. So I wanted you to get that out and be able to share thoughts about it, because I love the women's game. It is pure. It is awesome. It is the clip where she makes the bucket and sprints back and steals the ball that's been floating around Twitter. Sabrina did that. Fantastic. Like I get goosebumps talking about it. If I can get any athlete at any level to do that, I'm going to be your biggest hype person, even as your coach, whether I'm your head coach or your assistant coach. So, pretty fantastic. So let's just keep it rolling. I mean, tell us about the culture at OCC. It's at OCC. Is that what you call it?
Yeah. Orange Coast College. So yeah, OCC.
Yeah. So tell us a little about that culture. Obviously, like you said, rough year in the books, rough year keeping players healthy. Every college coach out there has been through it. If they say they haven't been, they're probably lying to you. So that's something we all know. So tell us about how you started building the culture and what makes it unique.
Sure. Well, I can't necessarily speak too much on the uniqueness of it. And the reason why is because I don't really know what other cultures are. I don't know if I'm doing something different from, whoever. But I can speak on basically the foundations of our culture and how we build on those foundations. I will say, number one, and kind of the same thing when I was at Costa Mesa High School, I would say to whoever, just get the ball rolling right away, walk in and essentially demand the culture that you want. Don't ease into it. So for us, or for my staff, we need to have values that we stand for and our team stand for. And it needs to be more than a list of words. So I know that a lot of coaches will have, these are our core values. This is what we stand for. And they'll read them off to their team in their first team meeting, and they'll probably never address them again. And that is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about having values that you represent daily, that your team stands for daily. You refer to those values often. You make them your why. How can we be the type of team or the type of person who misses the baseline by 1 foot when we're running sprints, but we stand for integrity? Like, you can't be both of those things. They're not synonymous.
I'd agree.
Yeah. I mean, so like I said, just stand for what you say that, your team stands for. And that's everybody. Be intentional with your team and the relationships that you have, really try to have conversations with them beyond surface level and beyond basketball. And that's really, it's not even just about you and your team. That's with everybody that you encounter on your campus, because some people are going to start talking about your team, about, the type of person you are, the type of players you have. With that, encourage your players to do more, speak to people on campus, go watch other teams, stop complaining about, your your attendance at your games if you yourself aren't going out there and supporting other games? Why would anyone come support you if you're not going to watch them?
No,
So
absolutely.
just, yeah, I mean, I just think we hear that, especially in women's basketball, right? Everyone's like, oh yeah, we have a home game, no one's going to be there. But it's like, okay, have you gone to any other game besides men's basketball who plays after you? You know, because if the answer to that is no, then there's your first problem right there.
Yeah, that's
Um,
100. I mean, just going to comment on this a little because I was a finalist for a couple national junior college jobs this year, and that's one of the things I asked as the AD, like, hey, what kind of partnership? How is the communication? You know, I had when you interview, you get some other head coaches in there. How's the attendance? How's the cooperation? Are we helping you? Have we helped you in the past? How can I help you in the future? Like, those are, I think people, that's, I, I don't want to generalize. I think a lot of coaches would love it if they could do that. I think acting it out is one of the hardest pieces about it. Like, just being intentional about, if I don't go to the game, why would my players go? You know, or
mhm,
if my assistants aren't going to games, why would my players want to be around? That stuff.
mhm.
So pretty cool to hear you saying that's part of your piece, because I always thought that, like, 100%. I coached out in the Northwest for a few years at the Division III level, and the women's program consistently had bigger crowds. So one day I asked one of the guys, said, why do you think that is? And he said, well, they go cheer for everybody. They go to the football games. They go to the soccer games. They go to softball games. Like, they are all over campus. They are posting team pictures on social media, tagging the team, saying good job. And, like, people love them for it. And it is rowdy.
Mhm.
So I wanted to just emphasize, like, coaches, I know that they want that, but they hope that it's organic. I think we need to be intentional, which is good. Glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, like you said, coaches want that, but it's more than wanting that. You know, sorry, but you have to work for it, especially if your team isn't necessarily, you know, number one in the nation and winning every single game. If you want people to show up when you're only winning 50% of your games, then you need to show up for them, you know, just like you were saying. Um, and then just to add to that, add to like our foundation and how we build our culture is, you know, that understanding that student athletes desire direction and discipline. They want to be told what you expect of them. They want to be told, you know, you can't do this, you can do this. They need to be held to a higher standard. That's why they play. I mean, that's one of the reasons why they play, you know. So don't call your rules. I know a lot of people struggle with, you
Yeah.
know, all rules are meant to be broken. Well, then call them expectations. You
Yeah.
know, it's not about following rules. It's about meeting expectations. They don't want to let you down. They don't want to let their team down, you know, so they're going to do whatever they can to meet those expectations that you set.
Yeah.
And let the players lead. You know, if you're coming into the start of a new year, start of a new season, and you have returners, and you're about to do a drill or a play or whatever, mitigate a minor argument that comes up. Let your captains, let your leaders. Hey, no, I know the drill, coach. Let me explain it real quick. You know, because teams need to be player led, not coach
Mhm.
led. It can't be the head coach's mouth that we hear all the time, because that just gets monotonous. And at the end of the day, you know, they're the ones on the floor playing with each other. We're just the ones kicking back, kind of calling the shots, but not really. I mean, we
Yeah.
can't determine what the other teams do. Um,
Yeah. That's really cool.
and
I
then,
think that's something that a lot of coaches think we think we're a little bigger than we are. It just is the truth. When it comes down to it, athletes are going to make plays. They're going to win games. They're going to do things the right way. We provide some guidance and we have some control, but in reality, we don't have any more control than anybody else. So it's great that you said that. I really appreciate that. Can you give us a couple tips and tricks that you did this past year to establish some of those things that you're talking about?
yeah, you know, so one thing that we do at the beginning of every year, and this is, you know, whether I'm coaching high school or I'm at OCC, is we have a women's basketball handbook And our very first team meeting is, we talk about our core values. We talk about our expectations on the court. We talk about our expectations in the classroom as far as study hall, or, being excellent communicators with your professors, things like that. And I give them 1 week basically to kind of make those expectations habitual. So, and a lot of the things that I do, I took away from every single coach that I've had. None of it really, I would say, is my own.
Yeah.
But with things like the typical, we're always early. We're ready to go before practice starts. If we're going to bring it in or start a drill, we're hustling everywhere. We don't walk anywhere. We run to get water. If we're at the end of the line, we're not involved in a drill. We're not standing there with our hands on our hips, bored out of our mind. We're like clapping, we're cheering for our teammates. If we see anyone not doing that, then we'll run. Running for us is a consequence. I know that a lot of coaches are kind of steering away from making their teams run as a consequence, but I don't care what anyone says. Basketball players don't like running. They like playing basketball. And if they know if they don't do X, Y, Z, they're going to have to run, then they're going to do X, Y, Z. But something that we do is, if I've gotten on a player enough and my leader isn't stepping up, I might call them over and be like, hey, you need to talk to so-and-so. She's standing at the end of the line, not doing anything. And, we have expectations with study hall and things like that. And I keep everything on Google Drive and I share everything with them. So I see them log their study hall hours and whatnot. And basically anyone who falls behind in deadlines that we set or attitude in practice, we offer them a last chance contract. And basically that contract, we give it to them after we've had enough conversations with them. And we say, I want you to sign this. This is us basically saying as a staff that this is your last chance to get on board with everything that we're trying to do. And, if we have to have this conversation again, you signed your last chance contract. We gave you your last chance and, that's it. We're done.
That's good.
But yeah.
Those are good things. I really, you're right. The running thing has been taking such a beating the last couple of years, especially what was the article that came out last year? Putting your hands on, bending over is better for you than putting your hands on your head. That's they said for breathing, for recovery. Yeah. So every player out there is saying, I demand an apology for yelling at me for bending over, for making us run again. I'm with you. I have a military background. I played college basketball before that. And running is something I don't like to do. I did it to keep myself in shape. I think a lot of players are like that. And what I learned in the military is you don't get better by doing one really hard practice. That doesn't make your lungs better. You do it 2 or 3 times, now you're getting somewhere. So I like that you do it still. I probably, once I become a head coach, will hold that mantra that, hey, it's not a punishment. This is a reminder. And this is because if you're not able to cheer, clap, be engaged, communicate, then you're probably not in shape. So let's get in shape. Yeah. And it doesn't have to, and I get really creative. I have hundreds of things in my head that I've done that range from the most miserable thing ever in the military to things I did in college. So having that list of things, I think that my teams, I will expect that we'll be in great shape down the road. So I'm happy you said that.
Mm-hmm. I was just going to say a couple of things to your point. First of all, as far as, telling a kid, don't bend over, don't put your knees down. Like, to me, like, that has never been about like their breathing. It ultimately has been about showing weakness, right? I don't want you in the game, like hunched over, like showing everyone that you are dead tired. I definitely, but you're right. I've seen that article and,
I disagree with it. And I tell people I disagree with it. They like it. I tell them I disagree. It's the same thing you just said. And we'll stay here for another second because I think it's a good point. When I'm in the military and guys are hunched over and we're tired, I tell them stand up. Your body will react how you train it. If you train your body to stand up tall and be strong and recover faster or think about recovering faster, you'll get there quicker. If you're going to pout and bend over, and I get it, you need to do it for 10 seconds, do it. but now stand up and train your body to stand up, because your body will do what you tell it to do. So I agree with you for sure that it's not about, I didn't care if they were recovering better. I want you to stand up. I've also seen some guys pass out because once your head gets below your heart, it's over. So I've seen that a few times too.
I've never seen that, but I've heard that.
They go down for about 5 seconds, then they wake up. It's just a feint. But some really cool things, like I like that you set expectations instead of rules. I like that. Player led. I like that you're calling players over. You're letting them get on teammates. You're letting them do some of that, and that's also an assistant coach thing. Like if I'm not involved teaching something, I should never be standing around or BSing with the players or doing stuff like that. Like every once in a while, before practice, after practice, maybe when they're shooting free throws. Other than that, I should be getting them engaged in the drill, in the focus, quizzing them. So I like that. Google Drive. I'm a fan. I didn't start using it till a few years ago. I'm a big fan of it. I taught some undergraduate classes at university. I use Google Drive all the time. Like, turn your stuff in there. I can monitor you. I can see when you change it. So if you edit stuff when you're not supposed to, like, I know. So I like that. And I think coaches don't take enough advantage of those things, those resources for tech. Like, I think athletes want technology and we just don't use it enough. So I appreciate that. I really do. But yeah, let's keep moving through a little bit, get you to keep talking about some stuff. What was the point this year? Tell us about a point. And, I'm getting off the script a little bit because I just want you to talk to us about it. When you realized the culture was clicking, like what was the aha? What happened on campus? What happened on the bus? I mean, when was it? And you looked at your staff and were like, hey, they're getting it.
I think there was like a lot of little moments here and there where it was like, all right, they're starting to get it. They're buying in. But I would say that when we had 4 healthy players, okay, and we knew that, and this is in the middle of season or the start of season, and we knew that our games were going to continue to be canceled until our 5th player was healthy. And I had my team, my 4 players, showing up, ready to go, ready to practice every day. I thought that was huge because I feel like, especially at the JC level, there's no scholarship. Well, in California, there's no scholarship. There's no scholarship tying them over. Mind you, my 2 team captains this past season were both girls who had absolutely zero interest in playing college basketball until I came knocking. For us to have no game in the near future, but my team was ready to go, I thought that was huge because you could easily be the type of kid, especially when you have no scholarship and you've got a job, because a lot of kids in the JC level, they work, where you could be getting in more hours. You could be the type of kid who's like, I think I might be an hour late, or I might be late today because what's coach gonna do? What is she gonna do if so-and-so gets healthy and we now have 5, no matter if I was late or not, or if I decided not to show up, they're still gonna need me to play. Yeah. And we didn't really have that, and again, I think that was kind of the moment where it was like, I'm going into practice with 4 players, like, okay, there's a good chance we might be playing next Wednesday, if so-and-so gets ready. So let's start working on this. This team likes to do a lot of, they shoot a lot of threes or whatever. They're going to play a zone. So we'll do 4-on-0 offense and I'll be our 5th, and my team is like doing the things that I'm talking about when I only have 2 on the court and the other 2 are sitting there clapping and cheering. I mean, if you probably have never walked into a team practice and seen 2 on the court and 2 off clapping and cheering. If you have, it was a team doing individuals with like some of their guards, like that was big for us. Definitely.
Yeah, never seen it. And yeah, I agree with you. I played junior college basketball. I get it. I played at the national JUCO level. Guys quit that when they had scholarships because they didn't like coach or they didn't like what was going on, or I'm not playing. So in California, when you're working, I mean, I couldn't imagine how tough it is. So that's fantastic to hear that, like, that's one of the pieces and one of the challenges. So really great to see that. How did you see the culture kind of permeating? I mean, that's one example of how it permeated the team in practice. How did you see it with their academics and throughout the campus? Did you see any of that?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I don't think if you are one who says you have a great culture, I don't think that that can be true unless your culture is surpassing basketball, right? Yeah, I have a great culture, but all my kids have like 2.0s and we're not involved on campus. And if I see them around campus, I look the other way because I don't feel like talking to them, right? That's not a great culture. But they're doing all the things that I ask them. We saw that because we had study hall, like I said, and my kids, again, whether we have 3 healthy or 4 healthy, they are turning in their weekly study hall hours. They're just choosing not to let me down or let each other down. We had one kid who came into OCC with a zero.5 GPA. If you have, from her college, she transferred from a 4-year. If you have a zero.5 GPA, you are doing 4 hours of study hall and 1 hour of tutoring a week. And this kid did that every single week. She was actually ended up being one of our captains because she did everything under the sun that I asked her to do. She ended up finishing this year with a 3.7 GPA, which is just unbelievable. I mean, zero.5 to 3.7 was just outrageous. We had a couple 3.7s, 3.5s.
I mean,
I think our
it
average.
literally is. It's literally A's all the time, and I feel like I permeate with everything you say because I work as an academic advisor. I work with those students who struggle their first year at college, and I help them get it up. And I have seen, 1 out of 400 in the last 3 years, maybe that we're on probation and we're below a 1.0 that got up to a 3.5 or higher. So, I mean, it's a feat. It's like A's, 4.0s every time. So that does speak to the testament of that student athlete. And then the fact that they want to be held accountable. Something I want to say, that kind of spurred me was you said that students want structure. Student athletes want structure. They want discipline. They want to know the expectations. They want to understand that there is that structure piece. And something that one of the other coaches I interviewed, for this podcast he goes, they have a commitment that they have to do. So his athletes have to run a certain mile time by day 1, and that's outside of basketball. But then he has study tables twice a week. This is high school. And he's got a speaker that comes in once a week. And he said he doesn't ever get any flack for it because he never has to cut anybody. And it's in an open enrollment, large city. So whoever wants to be a part of his program knows the expectations, and they either meet it or they don't. So he said they pretty much cut themselves by stopping to come to things or don't do the things that you're asking them. But the one thing he said when he took over the program was the same thing you said. You said, jump right into it. Jump your culture in right away. He said the exact same thing. He said, honestly, he goes, Eric, within 2 weeks, I had cut everybody but a couple of players. And literally I had no players. But I had been coaching in the city for so long that athletes heard that we needed players and they just showed up. But he said that didn't waver from my mile expectation for them, for their study habits, their tables. But he said, I can't do that. He goes, I gave them meals too. And he goes, it wasn't to pay them, but he goes, I provided a sandwich and chips for them every day after school. Because he goes, I can't expect them to be with me all the time if they're not eating or doing the right thing. So I love what you're doing. I think the testament that you went through with 4 players this year, and they still showed up and they did the study tables and they held themselves accountable. If there's any returning freshmen next year, I'll be excited to see how the new recruiting class adapts and how much it permeates, because I'm excited to watch it grow, your culture, because it sounds like at junior college, you don't see it all the time. It's like, let's get some dogs in here and let's win some games and let's get out of here. It's not always study table all the time. It is 2.0s though, right? It's a 2.0 and a graduation, and people are satisfied with that. But you're not willing to sacrifice. And there's going to be kids in your county within your 20-mile radius. There's millions of kids. They're going to come play for you because you have a standard and culture. Parents are going to pay for the college for them to come play for you. They'll do that. So it'll be good to see.
Well, thank you. That's definitely the plan, right? We're just like you said, getting our culture to permeate everything, even our, our surroundings, our community. We want to be the buzz. So.
Yeah. So you said earlier, and I mean, we don't have too many questions left. I gave you the sheet early so you could take a look at it and be prepped. What would you give advice to a coach who's just coming in wanting to start a culture and they're young, similar to you? I mean, you are that coach. You said, start the culture right away. I got it. Mm-hmm. Now give us your next 5 steps. Tell us what your next 5 steps are in sequence to build that culture.
Yeah, you see, that is so tough because I am young, right? So I'm actively in need of advice as well.
100%.
But you have to, it's so important that you come in, hit the ground running, especially if you are young, because you might get questioned if you come in loosely with, I think I want to do this, maybe we should try this. Like, no, have a plan. Your prep time is when you get hired to when your first day is. That is your time. Even before, if you're going after the job, that's the time to get your blueprint together. This is what I stand for, or your handbook or whatever. Get it all together. The day comes, you start, you meet your team, you are ready to go. This is what I stand for. This is what you're going to stand for. If you don't like it, get out. That's you have to, especially as a young coach. I think that, also too, with that, no matter how young you are, you have to remember that you are the head coach for a reason and you need to own it. They hired you, they picked you out of X amount of people for a reason. So don't forget that. Because I think that we have a tendency, all coaches, but especially younger coaches, and I can speak for myself on this, to kind of question, damn, what were they thinking when they hired me? I've only won 2 games. I just had to call so-and-so and cancel another game. I started with 14 players. Now I have, 7, but 4 are healthy. And, you're always going to be questioning yourself, but you have to remember to just stay true to yourself, stay true to everything that you're preaching to your team that you want them to stay true about. I think those are like the biggest things that I would tell a young head coach.
That's really good. That's good stuff. And, age, just a number. It's experience, it's time. And obviously, like you said, they saw you fit to be the coach there. So really happy that you're able to share some of that stuff with us. Something I'm curious about, and I know that there's going to be people who listen to this who are going to say, who maybe don't know you as well, who are going to say, how did you get from 14 to 7? What happened? And I know, so hold on, let me preface. It's JC basketball, so I understand. You're cutting a hard edge with your culture. And if that's it, then just tell us that's it. You don't have to get into details, but I know there's going to be people who want to know, how do you get from 14 to 7? Because most coaches would start compromising at 10. They just would. I know coaches that don't want to come to the table with less than 10 players, and they will compromise values for it. So talk to us.
Yeah, it's funny because when I had 14 and I slowly dropped to 12, I remember sitting in the office with my staff and basically saying, I'd rather go to battle with 5 kids that are going to buy into what we're doing than have a team of 10 or 14 where we're loose and we have to let things go. And this is before I knew that what I was speaking was actually going to happen. But, again, like I said, we had a unique recruiting situation where we're limited to where and who we can recruit, when we can talk to them, yada, yada, yada. Yeah. Golden West literally had a roster of like 30 kids, and it was 30 kids that were like the last of the last. So the way I recruited to OCC was, asking a few high school coaches, of course, is anybody left? Do you know anybody who played last year and now they're not playing basketball anymore? Now they want to be, maybe they want to come back. Or also the biggest one for us where we got the bulk of our 14 was everyone who comes to OCC fills out a student survey. And in that student survey, it asks, are you interested in women's collegiate basketball? Any person that said they were interested in women's collegiate basketball, I emailed. And, about 12 of them, because 2 of them that I recruited were not from that survey. So about 12 of them responded to me. They joined the team. And this was, in July, so about a month after I got hired. And, we started laying grounds for our culture, and a few of them would slowly drop off. Oh, I've actually got to work. Oh, I don't think I'm that committed. I don't really want to play college basketball, because they get into it thinking, oh yeah, sure, cool, there's a new coach, I haven't played basketball in a year or two, yeah, I'll try it. But then I'm determined, I'm young, I'm hungry, I'm ready to go. I'm like, I want to win 50% of my games. This is what we're going to do. This is what I stand for. I don't care. None of it is wavering. And kids just ultimately, they're like, I don't think that I want to do this. I can't commit to coming 5 days a week. I can't commit to doing study hall. And at a certain point, we had dropped it down to 7 that were healthy. I had 7 healthy players. And those were our 7 core players. We had our first game of the season. One of my players broke her foot in shoot around. So she was out just like that before the game even started. Yeah. I was down to 6, So I would say that it's just one of those things where I really was not going to have someone on our team who thought that they could work me because I needed them.
Yeah.
So I ultimately, if someone wanted to quit, I let them quit, because I knew, I think long-term, or I tried to, I knew that this is not going to happen next year. I'm going to have student athletes that I recruited who have goals and aspirations to move on to the 4-year, or to try to move on to the 4-year. And they are going to do what I'm going to ask them to do. I'm not going to be on my hands and knees begging people to play, Yeah. So I was really just trying to stay true to that. And it might have, obviously on paper bit us in the butt, but that ain't going to happen again at OCC.
And that's fantastic. That's what, a lot of coaches will say, that I'm not going to compromise my culture until you're faced with that. So you are a walking testament and testimony to that. You did not compromise. You forfeited games this year. You kept working girls out. You got the culture great. And listen, it shouldn't be a shot to your pride or ego. Like, just people out there are going to be looking at you, as they see the culture that you're building, and they visit your school and they visit your practices, and 4-year coaches talk to you, they're going to say, man, I know some coaches out there that probably wouldn't have done that. And you did what you felt was right. So, number one, having an athletic director who allows you to, fantastic props to whoever that is at OCC. I don't know who it is. So props to them. But also props to you and your staff for being committed to it and doing it. That's the way it should be. I mean, honestly, I had some players in the past who just came up to me after the season, and even before they talked to the head coach, and said, hey, Eric, I just want you to know, coach, that I'm not coming back. I thought I loved basketball, but I don't have the will or the commitment to do it. And I respect those guys, because they worked hard all year. They did what we asked. But when it came to like me having the end of an exit, conversation saying, hey, time to step it up. Here's what you need to do next year. Here's what you should do this summer. They're looking at me like, well, maybe I want to chill on my boat, or maybe I want to hang out on the water and fish, or I want to work, or, you know what I mean? Or do other things. So it just is what it is. So props to you for that.
I mean, well, thank you. I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just going to say that, if I could have easily, maybe kept a few of those players, or, said, hey, it's cool if you can only come to practice twice a week, like, please, we really need you, kind of thing. But I wouldn't be talking to you right now about how great my culture is. I really don't think that I would be, because when I say that I had, 4 healthy players, or when we did have 5 healthy players, when we played our games, anybody who walks into that gym who knows basketball looked at our team and was like, damn, they work hard and they have no one on the bench. I mean, there were times when we would go into halftime and we would be beating teams on the boards. Granted, once the game was over, that might not have been the scenario, but for 5 of my players, I mean, I'm not kidding. If you ever look on my Twitter, you'll see I preached and preach about how just so proud of my team that I was because we had 5 kids that just bought in and they just worked their butts off. And I would not have had that if I had 12, where half of them kind of were, and to just go to your point. So I really am grateful, not only for my team, but just like you said, my athletic director, my dean, everybody, because they bought in as well. They thought long-term as well. So it was great.
Nice. That's really fantastic. Last couple things, and we're kind of wrapped up. I just wanted to give you a chance to talk about that, and I really appreciate it. I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you talking. If you were the host, who would you want to hear from? What coaches would you want to hear from? Now, obviously, I can't go get Gino Oriema. He's not going to come get on the podcast, or I can't go get Don Staley or any of them. But who would you want to hear from?
Why not, man? Don't sell yourself
maybe
short.
Hey,
Go
I'm not.
there.
I'm just saying. Listen, I'm just saying. Right now, I don't have connections to either of those people. We'll just leave it at that. Twitter may have them. And here's a plug. So if we're sharing on Twitter, someone sees it and they want to share it with them and they want to talk, please come do. But who would you want to hear from? And give me your dream one, and then give me one you think realistically you'd love to hear from, and I'll reach out to them.
Okay. Realistically, someone I've never met, but I've sort of just followed along on Twitter, would be Molly Miller, who's over at Grand Canyon University.
Okay.
She has
just
done. She's a new hire.
Yeah.
So I'm anxious to see, what she's going to do going into her first year at GCU, especially with everything going on right now. But how especially she's going to, start her culture, because I feel like you got to change things, not necessarily your values and what you stand for, but you got to change some things because you might not be able to do some of those things. But she's just phenomenal. She did absolutely amazing when she was at D2, and so I'm just excited. Again, I don't even know her, but I've seen.
Was she? And I remember seeing that pub, and every time I see somebody publish it on Twitter, I always click on the person because I want to see where they were. She was in Florida somewhere, maybe. I'm not certain.
I can't.
You don't remember the school?
I don't know. No.
No, good. Okay.
And then, I also too, not necessarily, I wouldn't say totally unrealistic to hear from her, would be probably Janelle Bishop from Cal Poly Pomona. I think that she's also someone who's just been super successful, especially with her disguised 1-3-1 defense. But I think that her success is more to just her, hidden defense. I think it's more to her culture.
Okay.
So her, and then my dreams, who I would love to watch or chat with if I was hosting this podcast would be definitely Phil Jackson. I don't want to talk to that man.
Phil. That's, he'd be such a unique, interesting. We might not even talk about basketball for an hour. Who knows? You never know what would happen. But I think he'd be a great person to listen to get into a room. I had an old, I want to say old, a mentor of mine when I was an undergraduate, and she's on Positive Coaching Alliance. And I think she said maybe she sat next to Phil at something, and maybe Steve Kerr and Phil Jackson, and they were at her table. So she shared that with me, but be nice to sit in there for sure. Good one. We brought our team down a few years back to watch it. We had a kid from the Bay Area, and long story short, father had a little bit of change in his pocket and he bought us a suite. So we got to go down there and watch Steph warm up. And I'm trying to be respectful about it, but he got us a nice suite for the team. We went down there, watched Steph warm up, watched Clay, watched Iggy, and then Steve came and talked to us. So after the game, after his press conference, they took us down into this little side locker room that actually kind of looked like an old high school locker room. I was surprised they even had that down there. And he came in and talked to us for about 10 minutes, signed some autographs, and hung out. So really down to earth, dude. Pretty cool. Appreciate you sharing that. And then this one always puts coaches on the spot. Last kind of fun one. Who do you want to thank? Like whose shoulders have you stood on? Who have you learned from that you want to thank? A lot of people obviously thinking moms and wives and husbands or whoever partners, but talk to us about those people. Thank them. Who would you thank?
That's so funny. Like you said, you did give me the list of questions ahead of time, and I did have some time to think on my answers, but mom or dad did not come to mind. So now I kind of feel bad because they of course they should have.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
No,
I'm
that's
sorry.
okay. But I mean, my entire coaching tree, anybody who ever took a chance on me as their assistant, Lacey when she was at Concordia, Lacey Burns, Beck Flanagan, and the high school staff who decided to hire me, and Christine Collins at Concordia, who I did not work for, but she's just been, just such a great mentor and such a great friend. Russ at Vanguard, he was my coach. It was a great experience with tons of, a huge roller coaster ride. But it's definitely shaped me as a person and my coaching style. If I could, I would thank Kobe. And then my friend Haley King, actually, who referred me to coach for Back at Hope. And yeah, I mean, everyone at OCC, I think that it's really difficult. It's got to be, I would imagine, to look at someone as young as I am and decide, what, let's hire this person. But OCC did, and I'm just forever grateful. And, I know they know this, but I'm going to do whatever I can to do, a great job for them, because I love working there and I love everybody that I work with. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, fantastic. And I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you for talking, sharing. If you want me to share your contact info, so I think I'm going to upload it to YouTube once I edit the video, and then we can share it on Twitter. You can share it wherever you want. If you want me to put your contact info on the YouTube page, I can, for coaches to reach out to. If you don't, no sweat.
Please do. I'm always looking to make new friends.
Yeah, and you may get questions. I tell people, like, we don't cover everything here. We're just grazing some of the things. So you may get some deep questions, and just want you to be prepared for that. So hopefully that's okay with you, and really appreciate you, Coach. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you. Seriously. I mean, this is a great experience. I love talking anything about basketball, especially culture. Culture is something that, a lot of people have so many different opinions on. So I appreciate you giving me the opportunity and the platform to talk. So
yeah, no, for real, share it. And this will be gold in 3 or 4 years when you guys are winning league titles over there. So that'll be fun. So thank you. Really appreciate it. And just have a good night, Coach.
Thank you. You too.
Welcome back to the Conversations on Culture Coaching Podcast. This is episode 2 we have for you today, and have a great guest from the great state of California. She's actually the youngest head women's coach in the California Collegiate Community College League. Sorry if I butchered that, but she had some stops at Mamba Sports Academy at the high school level, and now is one of the youngest head coaches in the state of California, definitely the youngest on the women's side at the collegiate level. So excited to hear from her today, and it's Coach Doucette. So without further ado, I'm going to let her speak about the culture that she's created, the culture she's seen, and got some great takeaways here. So stay locked in. Thanks. Today on Conversation on Culture podcast, Coach Doucette shared with us some stories about how her culture changed, how it evolved over the last year, and then how she enforced it. I mean, only having 5 players at some point during the season is crazy, and most coaches would compromise their values for that. So for her, I want to applaud her. I want to just say to mental skills practitioners out there, coaches out there, players out there, this is someone you want to work with. I mean, someone who holds true to their values. As far as the mental side of the game, there's a lot of nuggets in here that you maybe don't see on the surface, but there's some pieces that we need to kind of mine and dig into here as a mental skills consultant. A couple of those are not having rules, but then calling them expectations instead. And then also allowing your players to take part in that. I mean, I think that's just reframing, right? Teaching players how to reframe their mindset, that these are not rules, they're expectations, they're things that we want you to live up to. And then teaching them how to set those goals and daily micro goals might help them. Habits to keep them moving forward. Letting the players lead is huge, right? But players oftentimes don't know how to lead. So as a mental skills consultant working with a team like this or coaches like this who are having this first time implementation, sometimes some role playing, some classroom work is what's going to be needed for them. So maybe we get them in, we do some role playing, we do some conversations, we do some counseling, and it looks more like counseling instead of mental skills work, which is part of what we do as well. So she mentioned something, Coach Doucette mentioned something about sticking to a plan no matter what, believing in it, having your why. You know, she didn't necessarily say your why, but your purpose, right? It's the same theme that's been coming up in a lot of these podcasts, right? Have a why, stick to it, believe in it, and then walk it out. Do it. Do your why. And then being intentional. So something that she was talking about was being intentional with every action, the language, the discipline, every piece that goes along with a program and building that culture. So when it comes to us as mental skills practitioners, we step into this and we're going to help a coach build a culture. And we see these attributes in that coach, or they're saying these things to us. Some mission statements we can help them develop. We can help them develop language throughout their program that's universal, that actually means what they're trying to say, working with coaches and doing other things like that. So hope you got some nuggets out of the podcast. I thought it was wonderful. Awesome to hear from her. I can't wait to follow her seasons in the future. Praying for her to get recruits, and it looks like, you know, from following her on Twitter, that she does got a big class this year. So they're going to have players that are going to be more ready, and she's doing the right thing there. So I'm excited to watch that culture grow and to watch success follow at Orange Coast College. So thank you all for listening today. Thanks for following, and Coach, thank you for being a part of this. Have a great day.